Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a program that talks about breeding of terrorism and its impact on South Asian nations. Let's begin with the headlines first. India's T.S. Tirumurthy assumes new chair of UN Counter-Terrorism Committee. Pakistan trying to revive Khalistani movement. And Taliban imposing rigid laws of their past rule. India is not only concerned about the safety and security of people living in its own territory, but it always reiterates adopting and executing improved strategies to counter terrorism globally. Recently, T.S. Tirumurthy, India's permanent representative to the UN, assumed the chair of the Security Council Counter-Terrorism Committee for 2022. As the chair for CTC, New Delhi will make determined efforts to ensure the global response to the threat of terrorism remains effective. A report.
Over the past several years across different platforms, India has made sure that it does voice its concerns when it comes to counter-terrorism. The world recognizes India's efforts, and hence last year, New Delhi was asked to chair three important committees of the Security Council, which include the Taliban Sanctions Committee, Counter-Terrorism Committee and the Libyan Sanctions Committee. India has recently assumed the chair of Counter-Terrorism Committee for 2022. This committee was formed in September 2001, soon after the tragic terrorist attack of 9/11 in New York. India is chairing this key subsidiary body of the UNSC after a long gap of 10 years. The last time New Delhi held the chairmanship of the CTC was in the year 2011 and 2012. The Counter-Terrorism Committee comprises all 15 members of the Security Council, including India, France, Russia, United Kingdom, United States, China, among others. When terrorism is expanding its tentacles to new areas, Security Council needs to act without delay. And India has now got an opportunity to work closely with all member states to address the issue.
Fortunately, India is at the UN Security Council this time and has assumed the chair of the CTC and has been consistently working on it, whether it is in the context of global terrorism through its comprehensive convention on international terrorism, or through focusing that how to define, as Prime Minister Modi himself had said, that the terrorism has not even been defined properly by the United Nations, let alone fight it. So there are definitely interests, there are definitely countries, even among the P5, which tend to use their geopolitical objectives over the global objectives of fighting terrorism. India has always singled out that there cannot be a good terrorist, bad terrorist, my terrorist, or your terrorist. And that is something that is extremely important to remember.
On the eve of assuming chair of the CTC, India had voted in favor of a resolution to renew the mandate of the Counter-Terrorism Committee Executive Directorate. The UN Security Council, through its written silence procedure, renewed the mandate of the Executive Directorate until December 31, 2025. The Counter-Terrorism Committee is assisted by the Executive Directorate, which carries out its policy decisions and conducts expert assessments of the 193 United Nations member states. In its explanation of the vote, India has reiterated it is committed to pursue all the necessary measures in collaboration with other member states towards the goal of zero tolerance for terrorism. The country will make determined efforts to further enhance the role of CTC in strengthening the multilateral response to counter-terrorism. More importantly, New Delhi will ensure that the global response to the threat of terrorism remains unambiguous, undivided, and effective. The South Asian nation has called on member states to remain united against the tendency of labeling acts of terrorism based on its motivation. It believes such categorization will lead the global community back to the pre-9/11 era of my terrorist versus your terrorist.
Despite the differences, India has successfully shown it, as it was seen at the June 7th GSTC meeting. India has stood by it and the consensus has been obtained. And similarly, when the Security Council Resolution 2593 with regard to Afghanistan was there, at that time, terrorism emanating out of Afghanistan in a very fluid situation has been a major concern, and India has focused on it very clearly. It has very clearly articulated its views, and it has taken on board all sides. So I have no doubt that India will make a great contribution to this fight, but at the same time, the international geopolitics will continue to play its role.
The chairing of the Counter-Terrorism Committee has a special resonance for India, which has not only been at the forefront of fighting terrorism, especially cross-border terrorism, but has also been one of its biggest victims. Chairing this committee is a ringing endorsement of the country's leadership in the fight against terrorism. It will help keep the focus on the presence of terrorists and their sponsors threatening the peace in the South Asian region and beyond.
Let's move to Jammu and Kashmir, where the security forces have launched a series of counter-terrorism operations to demolish the cobweb of Pakistan-aided terrorism in the region. Pakistan is trying hard to whip up havoc and violence through continuous terror attacks and infiltration bids in Kashmir. However, the alert Indian security forces are eliminating these terrorists with a commitment to maintaining peace and tranquility in the region. We have a report. The Indian security forces are carrying out a series of operations to uproot the network of terrorism from Jammu and Kashmir. The terror groups operating in the valley have received a huge setback. Recently, 3 Jaish-e-Mohammed militants, including a Pakistani national, were killed in an encounter with the security forces in the Pulwama district in Jammu and Kashmir. The security forces launched a cordon and search operation after specific inputs about the presence of terrorists in the area. Meanwhile, security forces also gunned down a militant affiliated with the Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba outfit during an encounter in Srinagar city of the region.
आज दिन में श्रीनगर पुलिस एक इनपुट डेवलप किया था शालीमार बाग में एलटी का जो कमांडर है सलीम परे 2016 से एक्टिव है, वो अपने एक एफटी साथी के साथ घूम रहा है। श्रीनगर पुलिस वहाँ पर गई, उसके बाद सीआरपी भी आ गई, कॉर्डन डालते ही फायरिंग शुरू हो गया, जिसमें सलीम परे मौके पर मारा गया। एफटी वहाँ से भागने में कामयाब हो गया। हम लोग उसको फॉलो करते रहे और जाके गुसू में दूसरा विलेज में उसको हम लोग कॉर्डन डाले, फिर आर्मी भी ज्वाइन कर ली, फिर दूसरा इनकाउंटर में आर्मी सीआरपी पुलिस मिलकर दूसरा एफटी को भी न्यूट्रलाइज कर लिया।
As Kashmir is heading towards more peace and prosperity, Pakistan, being envious of its development, is busy hatching woolly plots to incite terrorism in the valley. Just a few days back, India's border security force recovered a huge haul of arms, ammunition and heroin near the border district of Samba in Jammu and Kashmir. The recovery was made based on inputs received by the border forces that found the arms, ammunition and contraband drugs hidden in bushes in a white sack.
हमें सतत लगातार इनपुट मिल रहे थे पिछले कुछ समय से कि सीमा पार से इस प्रकार की घुसपैठ या तस्करी आर्म्स एम्यूनिशन या नारकोटिक्स की हो सकती है, उसके लिए प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं। तो उसके मद्देनज़र हमने अपनी जो सतर्कता बढ़ाई हुई थी और हम पूरी तरह से तैनात थे, और ये जो प्रयास किया गया था हमारी ट्रुप्स की तैनाती की वजह से ये विफल हुआ है, और ये बहुत अच्छी रिकवरी बीएसएफ ने की है, और एक आगे बड़ी ट्रेजेडी हो सकती थी इनका इस्तेमाल करके, उसको रोका गया है।
On one hand, Pakistan is refusing to change its modus operandi, and on the other hand, the notorious South Asian country is inviting India to the SAARC meeting. Islamabad's desire for a summit doesn't sit well with its recent attempt at infiltration into J&K. Moreover, India's neighbor rediscovered enthusiasm for holding a SAARC summit in Islamabad is likely aimed at shoehorning the Taliban as the representative of Afghanistan.
Pakistan sometimes makes a lot of humor, I would say. On the one hand, they are not ready to accept whatever terrorists they are infiltrating into India. And recently, what happened in Karen sector, where a man was killed, and also in the international border area of Arnia, where another infiltrator was killed. They refuse to accept their bodies and refuse to accept them as their people from there. And on the other hand, they want India to come and participate in SAARC. SAARC was actually made for the cooperation between all these countries, and Pakistan is the biggest impediment in this SAARC movement, because Pakistan is not stopping its infiltration, it's not stopping its terrorism, exporting it to India and other countries also. And therefore, India would be better off than rather attending SAARC.
Instead of holding a SAARC meeting which is unlikely to yield any meaningful outcome, Pakistan should rather focus on addressing India's concern on countering terrorism. Otherwise, New Delhi on its side has many other options to tackle the nefarious agendas of Islamabad. Since returning to power in August, the Taliban have increasingly imposed their harsh interpretation of Islamic law, severely curtailing freedoms, particularly those of women and girls. Many Afghans, particularly women, who hope the Taliban would reform their extreme views, have been disappointed by the new severe restrictions imposed on them. A report.
The level of backwardness and barbarism of Taliban is astonishing. Massacring common Afghan people for over the past 2 decades was not enough for them, as they are now beheading mannequins. This video in the public domain is from Herat, where the Taliban authorities have asked clothing shops to behead all female mannequins, calling them un-Islamic. Under the Taliban's strict interpretation of Islamic law, depictions of the human figure are forbidden, and it is more difficult for them to tolerate these figures which represent women. In the war-torn country, women particularly are facing the brunt as they are slowly being squeezed out of public life. A majority of secondary schools remain shut for them, while most women have been banned from working. However, Taliban spokesmen claim that women are not being denied their rights in the Islamic Emirate.
In Afghanistan, from primary all the way to university levels, all women are allowed to attend school and attain education. On public sector, from grade 1 to 6, all girls are attending school. And in a conservative society like Afghanistan, that comprises majority of female students. And we have up to 12 to 13 provinces where girls are attending from grade 7 all the way to 12. And the government, the state policy is that we will give every right to the female members of our society that comprise half the population, their right to work, their right to education, and every single other right that has been afforded to them in Islam.
The Taliban seized power in Afghanistan in mid-August, and since then, the radical group has been imposing harsh restrictions. After the takeover, the de facto rulers in Kabul immediately instructed girls and young women to stay home. The anger of Afghan women is being reflected in their periodic demonstrations against the Taliban. Those who expected a positive transformation of the Taliban mindset were wrong, because there is absolutely no indication of their flexibility and tolerance as far as their approach on societal issues is concerned. On the other hand, Taliban is claiming that their government represents the common people of Afghanistan who are fully satisfied with the ruling dispensation.
To call it, term it as a Taliban government is incorrect. This is the government, a representative government of the people of Afghanistan. It did not come here through in an airplane. It was not airdropped. The leadership was not airdropped. It was not backed by foreign forces. It is the people of Afghanistan that this new government represents. And for the world, it is absolutely necessary, it is imperative to engage with this new government and accept the uniquity of the Afghan people for what it is, and engage with it in dialogue. If there are any outstanding issues, it can all be resolved through dialogue and engagement. Using pressure tactics is not the answer to the problems that Afghanistan is facing.
The Taliban regime has failed to earn recognition from any UN member state because of their rigid and intransigent mode of governance, their inability to transform their mindset on issues such as women's freedom. Their argument that the US refusal to release its frozen assets is the reason for them not being able to reopen girls' schools and universities is illogical. It is the human and not the financial resources which are essential for reopening doors for female education. Taliban government should understand that a country can't survive in the 21st century by pursuing a retrogressive and ultra-conservative approach. The eventual outcome of suppressing the freedom and creativity of women will be the erosion of Afghan society. Banning music, songs, and healthy entertainment avenues will augment frustration, anger, and antagonism, particularly among the youth. In turn, the wrong message will be delivered to the world that the Afghan people are socially backward and can never live a normal life.
Pakistan has always tried to revive the issue of Khalistan, a separatist movement that is long dead. Through various means and strategies, Islamabad tries to instigate Sikh youth in India and abroad with the objective of spoiling their future. However, the movement has gotten nowhere despite Pakistani support. Take a look. The support for Khalistan in India has sunk very low, but the militant groups like the Khalistan Liberation Force and Sikhs for Justice have been pushing their agenda hard through various platforms with the help of the Pakistan's ISI. Notorious ISI is making every possible attempt to bolster Khalistan groups in different countries across the globe. Pak-backed Khalistan ideologue Gurpantwant Singh Pannu of banned outfit Sikhs for Justice is continuously attempting to disturb Punjab's peace, stability and communal harmony. He often uploads incendiary videos to his YouTube channel in order to incite Sikhs in Punjab to oppose India. Recently, Pannu released yet another video in which he threatened Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and tried to instigate common youth. The pro-Khalistan agenda for a separate homeland has no takers in Punjab. But the cause still survives in Pakistan, where jihadist groups have made common cause with Sikh separatists like Pannu against their shared enemy, India.
After creation of Pakistan after 1947, there were so many sacred places of Sikhs in Pakistan. The sacred places of Sikhs are called Gurdwara Sahib. The three most sacred places of Sikhs still are in Pakistan. Nankana Sahib, the birthplace of Sikh religion's creator. Kartarpur Sahib, Panja Sahib. Now those who want to create Khalistan, a separate Sikh state, they ignore these three sacred places of Sikhs which are in Pakistan, which shows their intention that they are fulfilling Pakistan's agenda.
Islamabad's role in supporting the Khalistan movement is a direct consequence of 1971 breakup of Pakistan, when Bangladesh was formed out of East Pakistan with the help of the Indian armed forces. Following 1971 war, the only thing Pakistan wanted was revenge, and more specifically, bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. Thus, post-1971, Pakistan's policies and strategical measures underwent transition and became entirely dedicated to hurt India along with the religious, political and ethnic lines. In this way, the foundation of the Khalistani movement was laid. The ethnic cleansing, forced conversions, targeted attacks on the Gurdwaras have reduced the Sikhs, Hindus and Christians into a small fraction of community in Pakistan. Yet Pakistan assumes to be the champion of the Khalistani causes and support the Khalistan militancy.
General Yahya Khan and Bhutto wanted to create many separate states within India. Bhutto once said, and I quote, "Once the back of Indian forces is broken in the east, Pakistan should occupy the whole of eastern India and make it a permanent part of East Pakistan. Kashmir should be taken at any price, even the Sikh Punjab, and turn it into Khalistan." Unquote. Bhutto was hanged by another military dictator, General Zia. And General Zia, who succeeded Bhutto as the head of state, he continued that policy.
The new generation in Punjab has totally rejected Pakistan's malicious propaganda and has opposed any such move that divides people along lines of faith. Hence, Islamabad should now understand that it cannot achieve its goal of forming a separate Khalistan either through conventional war or through other conspiracies. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We will be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsaANIN.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.